Hello and welcome back to Web Design for Small Business. In this video, part 9, icon sets, we're going to be talking about how to incorporate icons into your website. Now, if you remember back when we had downloaded and installed Bootstrap, Bootstrap itself came with some icons. They are called glyph icons. And as you can see, this is the list of them here. Basically just from their documentation, it shows a list of all the icons that come by default. So it is from Glyph Icons, and it gives you 250 glyphs by default, and these are them. Now, this may look like quite a bit, and it honestly is, and it might do you for most of what you need to do. However, I found that after using them, they are quite limiting in what they can do. I don't mind how they work, but there's definitely limitations, and at some point you may find that it just doesn't have what you want. So after a while, I started looking for new ones. The other reason was because I started thinking about possibly dropping Bootstrap 3 in favor of Bootstrap 4, and Bootstrap 4 doesn't have any of these glyph icons included. So I would have to adopt a new icon set if I wanted to use Bootstrap 4 anyway. However, going through everything, I came across something called Font Awesome. Font Awesome is an icon set, and like glyph icons, it has a free set and it has paid sets. But the free sets have over 1,500 icons, as opposed to the 250 that were included in Bootstrap. So at over 6 times the number of icons, we're already seeing a huge difference. That said, it takes it one step further, and these icons can actually be mixed and matched. You can change colors of parts of them. It's actually really intense what you can do with these. They're quite powerful. They're actually relatively easy to install and work with. That's not even all of them. There are a lot. So, and if you're ever trying to find a specific one and you don't know how or where, their site actually has a little built-in search thing, and then how you use them is basically just the name that's attached to them. So they have on the left-hand side here all the different categories. Up at the top, the first thing you'll want to check, because it does have a whole bunch of different icons, the ones that are grayed out by default are these ones that are pro only, so you need that pro license in order to use those ones. Because in total, as you can see, there are a lot of different icons. But we don't need them, so what we can do is check that free one, and it just limits to what are the free ones. They further divide them into solid, regular, light, duotone, and brands. So solid and regular, for example, are like these. So they're both address books, but one is solid and one is more of an outline. Solid, regular, right? So it kind of gives you an idea of what those are. Light just typically means that the lines are thinner, and duotone will break different things apart into multiple colors. So you can actually have more than one color in the icon. And brands are what they say, so things like the Amazon logo and the Amazon Pay logo, the Adobe logo, those are all brands. It doesn't have all brands, but it does have quite a lot, and specifically ones that we will be using. Yeah. So these are the ones we're going to go with, and we're going to go with their free ones. So go to fontawesome.com/download. And right here, you see for web or for desktop. So if you get them for desktop, basically You can incorporate those into your images if you're creating logos and stuff like that, but just be aware of different license usages. For us, we want the web one. And pro or free, if you feel like buying the pro, go for it, all the power to you. We're just going to use the free one. Click on that, it will download a file that says Font Awesome-free. It's a zip folder, so we can open that using 7-zip. And when you do that, you get this. So folder, open that up. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. We don't need most of this. What we want to do is we want to open up the JS folder or the JavaScript folder, and we want all.min.js. So take that, copy it somewhere, close that out. You can delete the downloaded file because we have what we need. Go into NetBeans, and wherever you copied that file, bring it over and drop it into our JS folder. Now we have this file that says all.min.js. However, we don't want to leave it being called that because that's really not very descriptive of what that is. So we're going to rename this file, and we're going to just add fa- to the front of that. So it's fa-all.min. Hit OK. There we go. Now what we need to do is we need to include this into our index.php script so that our site starts using it. And they actually give us a little cheat sheet on how to do this. So, using SVG with JavaScript. And it shows us this line here. However, there is also on the right hand side using Font Awesome with jQuery. And it says first we need to configure Font Awesome SVG with JavaScript to Nest. And it gives us this line here. We're going to copy this. Right click, copy, and we're going to go into NetBeans, and we're going to find all of our JavaScript. So we want to put it under jQuery, but above, and we haven't created our, I was thinking of this where we had our custom CSS folder. Eventually we will also have our custom JavaScript file. We don't have that yet, so it will be below all the other JavaScripts, but above our custom one. However, this is not the file we downloaded. So we want to change this to the file that we created. So we change this to our domain, JavaScript, and we renamed it to fa-all.min.js. Okay, so we want it to look like that. And then keeping this part, the data auto replace SVG equals nest. And that should be all that we need. So we're going to save that. So the next thing we want to do is actually start using that. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a little hamburger. So I'm just going to close the things I don't need from here now. Okay, so I am going back to the free icons Font Awesome page. So fontawesome.com/icons. Honestly think if you just put that in, that will bring you directly to that page. And it does. And then you just check that free box. And you can search for icons here. So what I want to search for is hamburger. And see, even though I misspelled it, it still knew what I was talking about. So there's an actual hamburger, and there's bars. And that's what we want, is those bars. So if you click on it, it'll bring up Um, a lot of different things, but the important thing is this right here. This fun little code thing. And you click on it and it copies it for you. That's fairly convenient. Go to our site, and where we had menu, in fact this entire span we're just going to replace with that. And save, and back to our folder. That is creeping me out, so I'm going to go back on that, delete that, so it loads everything in there. Awesome. Okay. With the page refreshed, I'm going to now shrink it down, and boom, we have 3 little lines there that are synonymous with a menu. So there you go. They work. Awesome. Now we can actually change some things with that. We can change the colors by using style and stuff like that. So just to test that, I'm going to set the color to our green, and when I reload that, that is now green. It may not look like it, but when I zoom in, you can see that that is definitely green. Okay, now how do they work so we know how to use them in the future? So basically, what we're looking at is we're going to be using I because it's a single character. It works with it. It's actually kind of designed around it. We don't have to use the I specifically. We could just use a span. However, typing 4 letters span and 4 letters span here every single time is a lot more work. It takes up more space, and in the end it doesn't make a difference. The I is traditionally used to create something that's italicized, but because we don't actually have text in there, it's not doing anything. So people who make icon files have typically kind of stolen the I for their own means. So instead of using it to make something italic, they use it to create their icons. I for icon, it kind of makes sense. So just using the I, and then we have to create a class attribute, and the class FA, and then a letter here depending on the type. So S is for solid, R is for regular, B is for brand. Those are the only ones we're going to have in the free set. So it's either going to be FAS, FAB, or FAR. And then it'll have FA hyphen and then the name of the product. So if you're looking directly at their list of different things, when you hover over it, if you look down in that bottom left corner, it has the URL, and it will tell you in basically the PHP code, it has that question mark style is equal to. That is actually a get comment, but we'll get into that when we get into PHP. But the important thing to note there is that it says style equals solid. Okay, this one, style equals regular. So like I said, that's solid, that's regular, but you look at that. Now, what it says here, address book, right? So without even having to click on it and bring it up, I can tell right away that in order to get this, I would have to type in for the class FAS space FA hyphen address hyphen book, and that would get me that icon. Now if I click on that, you can see that's exactly what they have up there. Okay, and that's going to be the exact same process for every single one. Now what are these different things? Okay, so these here are sizes. So you can actually change the size of it. So if you want them bigger, smaller, you can do that. Like I said before, you can actually overlay some of them. So for example, if you want an address book and then you want an address book with like that classic no symbol around it, you can actually create that using this set because you can overlay the icons on top of each other. Glyph icons doesn't allow you to do that. It's a little bit more straightforward using glyph icons, but this one just gives you so many more advantages. That's why I like it. Plus, the actual library, like I said, for free is 6 times larger. So it just gives us that, and that's without mixing, right? Once you start including the mix and match, it gets exponentially bigger. So anyway, now what we can do is we can create different icons for each of these guys. So we're going to go into each one and one at a time add an I. Now it is technically I for italic, but I will just call it I for icon, so an icon tag with a class, and I'm just going to leave that blank for now, and I'm going to copy and paste this into each one of these. Okay. Now we're going to go back into Font Awesome, and we're going to look up what we want to use for each of these icons. So, for the create account and the login, we're just going to type in the word user, and it should give you a big kind of list of different things associated typically with users. So personally, I like this one for registering an account. You can use any of them that you want. It doesn't have to be the same, but this is the one that I'm going to use. It's ID card and it's regular, and I'm going to use that one for my create account. So because it's regular, it's fa, and it was ID card. Save. For the login, there is a user Now, basically for the login, you can just use the simple user. You can use user shield. You can use user lock. Any of those type of things. If you want a slightly different style, you can use user alt. Basically, the circle for the head is bigger, the shoulders a little wider, and squatter. I'm going to use the user lock, I believe. That one is a fast user lock. For the admin, I am going to, typically I'll either use the user shield or the user tie, because the user tie kind of makes you look like the boss. And yeah, I think I'm going to use user tie. So again, that is fast user tie. Okay, location, menu, and order. So for the location, nothing in there I like. There's some globes, maps, map marked alt. I do like that one. So that is solid. Fast map marked alt. Okay. Order. You can see they even have some Star Wars references. You got WordPress, Internet Explorer. Nothing really that screams we're creating an order. So I'm going to type in cart, shopping cart. And again, for your site, you can use whatever icons you want. So just kind of browse around, see if something pops your eye, because your categories are going to be different than mine, and maybe your personal preferences are going to be different than mine. It really doesn't matter what you use, so pick something that you like. And I'm probably just going to go with the shopping cart. I'm trying to find something a little bit more food related. Could just go to currency and see what's in there. Now, if you do check one of the subcategories, you have to uncheck it if you want the wider view. Yeah, I think I'm just going to end up going with the shopping cart. Or actually, I'm going to go with the cash register. I like that one. Fat cash register. Alright, and now a menu. And this might be the hardest thing. I might end up actually stealing the blank map. This guy here. That almost looks like a flag though, so I might go with this one because it's a little more squared. So Farfa map. Okay, so I'm going to save those. Now I'm going to go back and take a look to see what it looks like. Because I don't have a lot going on there, I want to actually increase the size of these. Because I find those are all fairly small. So I'm going to, since it's with these navigations, I'll just put it with those ones. Navigation. Font size. And because I have absolutely no idea what size it is set to, I'm just going to take a random guess. I am going to leave it in pixels though. And we'll see if that makes it bigger, smaller, or the same. To me, that looks like it is the exact same. So I'm going to assume that's what it was by default. So I'm going to change that to 18. That's a little bit bigger. I noticed these ones did not change, so I will go back into there and add a navigation class to the UL of that one, just like there is one in this one. And that should make that effective on there. Save that. Go back to this one. I'm going to go crazy and try increasing it a bit more. I'm going with 20. Okay. That makes it pretty big and clear and easy to use. So now as I scale down, I just want to make sure, yeah, see, I don't want that to happen. Now, one thing I could do is decrease the distance between these. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to cut this out and paste that right up at the top here. Paste. And I'm actually going to go one further. I'm going to copy that, paste, change this to an I. Font style, italic. So if at any point I want to create italic text, I just add the class I. Red. Color 700 because that is our red. And now one thing I'm going to add here is I'm going to do a space, and it's before the semicolon, exclamation mark, and the word important. What this will do is if I have this red, it will automatically override the color to be this, even if something else comes afterwards and tells it to change it to something else. So I'm going to do the same with green and gold. To the colors that we're using in our color scheme. Alrighty. Just add a yellow one in there as well. You can do the same with yours if you so feel like it. You don't have to. But it's just a nice quick way to do things like that. Okay, so back down here. Now I got rid of that there because I want to add more to just the navigation A. So restoring the font weight to bold, but then we're also going to add a padding of 10 pixels. And save that. So that's getting overwritten. Okay, so okay, and we're back. So after a little bit of playing around, I have it just like I want it now. So our icons and our text are relatively the same size. They flow well together at the very least. You can make these bigger and smaller. In order to do that, you go in and add FA, and I mean this can be done at any point. The FAR part has to be added first. You could add this in the middle or at the end, it doesn't matter. I typically add it in the middle because it's usually a consistency thing. Anyway, you can do SM for small, LG for large. I think there's an XS, and then from there up you got 2X, 3X, and on. And to look at that, that's what these things show. Yeah. So you see the size, so 5X. So that would just be FA-2X. To get double the size, FA-3X, and so on. Back. Anyway, so that icon, which is this guy, so I made it smaller so that it took up less space, and then I needed to change the padding around this. So I had to do that in a couple of spots to get it just right. I also changed the padding here between each of these. By default, it was 15 pixels all around. I kept it 15 on the top and bottom, but changed it to 10 on the sides. So that way, as you see, it gets really close up there, but then pops over to the menu. So at no point does this ever have to pop onto a second line, which is the look I was going for. All right, So now, in order for me to have created that, and like I said, you're going to have to play around with your own numbers a little bit. You might want to maybe think about making some of the names smaller if you need to. If you have fewer items, you can even space them out more. It's really entirely up to you. But what I did was, so going over this, we broke out the bold. I created the extra ones for those, and then recreated this with the font weight bold, but then I added padding, 15 pixels, 10 pixels, and important. So with padding, there are 3 ways that you can write it. You can write it with a single value, which means it applies to all sides. You can write it with 4 values, which means top, right, bottom, left, or you can write it with 2 values, which is top and bottom and sides. So vertical and horizontal. Okay, the important means that if something else, because it does it in the hierarchy of anything that says that I should change this value, I will go with whatever the last one is. If you mark it as important, which is before the semicolon, you add an exclamation mark and write the word important, just like that. What that will do is it'll say, even if you have something listed after this, use this one. Now, if there are multiple ones marked important, then it will choose the last one marked important. But important is an override, so it will override anything that doesn't say important, and then if there's more than one that says important, it will be the last one. Now, hopefully, you don't need to use that unless something else within Bootstrap marked it as that, or if the listing is just kind of slightly convoluted, because there can be different things. So for example, where this is the parent is marked navigation and the child is the anchor, in that case, if there's anything that applies directly to the anchor tag, that will overwrite this anyway, and that's part of the reason why we need that important in there. Okay. Now, the other thing I did was the navbar toggle. So if you go back to our index and you see where the navbar toggle class is right here, this is one of the Bootstrap predefined classes, and it has a padding set to it for 15 pixels all around. And the 15 pixels was actually slightly bigger than our little menu icon there, and bigger than what our text here was. So when we used that, it was actually popping down the menu a little bit and making it bigger. You can see now when I move it, it's roughly the same size. It may actually be moving a pixel or two, but it's not a big deal. It's not noticeable. So what I had to do there was I just wanted to change that so that that vertical padding, instead of being what it was set at before, which I honestly don't even remember by default, but we can check. So right click, go inspect, and one of the nice things about this inspection tool is when you select it, it will actually list everything, and you see these lines, the strike through lines, that says this was overwritten by something else. So it shows every single thing that applies to this, and if it's something that is overwritten, then it is slashed out. It'll also tell you where it came from. So user agent style sheet, Bootstrap, our CSS file, The user agent style sheet is a default, in case you're wondering what that is. So all these things are stricken through. And I think at the top there's a search, but because I have it shrunken down, we are not seeing that. The filter here. So we want to filter that for padding. It's not going to do it for me. That's just great. Oh, right. Because it's no longer visible. Inspect that. Padding. Oh, you're going to do that again. Computed. So the computed, as opposed to the styles list every single thing. The computed only lists the things that actually apply to it. So the final version, what's being used. Oh, I remember why it's not working now. Because this applies to the actual button. Padding. There we go. There we go. There. So the nav bar toggle, the original was 9 pixels and 10 pixels. 10 pixels horizontally, so it makes it a little bit fatter than it is tall, but that 9 pixels of padding was too much because it's 9 pixels both directions, so it's actually adding 18 pixels total, which was just too high. So what we did was we changed it to 4 and 8. So from 9 and 10 to 4 and 8. And that fits really nicely. If yours is a different size, you can change that too. The navigation, I changed the font size and the line height. So the font size, I picked 20 pixels to get it to be this relatively the same size as our icons. And then the line height, basically if you have 2 lines, that is the height of the line for the font, and then the font fits in between. So if the line height is smaller than the font size, you will actually get text that will overlap, and then if the line height is larger, you will get a gap between. So typically you want that to be the same size or larger. I like to give it a couple pixels on either side as a bit of a buffer, and that's kind of exactly how that works. It basically creates like padding for the text. So you see when I highlight it, it highlights the actual line height. So you see there's a little bit at the top and bottom there. All right. So that is icons. We got them installed, we got them added, and we got them set up within our layout using CSS so that they fit nicely with everything and our menu is adjusted accordingly. So I will see you guys in the next video.